me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-lo. Keep me in your heart for a while. Oh, keep me in your heart for a while. Keep me in your heart for a while.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm the Reverend Christine Dance, and I am honored to serve as the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix. Welcome to UUCP's online worship service. In this time when we are physically distant, we believe it is an act of love to worship online and be together in this way. Welcome to our worship, especially after an absolutely amazing night of community and storytelling and support last night. Welcome home. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix strives to be a spiritual community for our time, focused on diverse theological perspectives, radical inclusion, and knowing that issues of justice and equity shape everything that we do. With a special awareness for those who have been historically marginalized, we welcome all of every race, class, ethnicity, immigration status, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious background, mental and physical ability, and disability. We welcome your whole self, your family, however it is comprised, into our worship as we build a community of caring, of courage, and of hope. Our opening words this morning are from UU Minister Patricia Sheldon. In this hour of holy stillness, we gather to honor the gift of love. In this hour of holy stillness, we remind ourselves that the flames of life and love are never fully extinguished. In this hour of holy stillness, we offer ourselves to share the weight of each other's grief. In this hour of holy stillness, we offer the strength of our love to help others in their pain and grief. In this hour of holy stillness, we call forth from each of us the power we offer out of life, out of loss, out of love. I invite you to grab a chalice or a candle from your home as we recite our covenant, as my wife Karen lights our chalice together. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to share our strength in fellowship. Thus do we covenant.
Good morning. I am Gary Ezel, your worship associate. Let me introduce our worship team this morning. Our music director, Benji Messer. Our director of children's ministries, Katie Resendez. Our Zoom operator today is Justin Walgren. And our chat chaplain today is Carrie Lifshitz. Our pianist, Mary Coda, is back from maternity leave to share her beautiful music. Our chat is open. You can chat with everyone or just to our panelists. Our service is automatically captioned. If you're joining us on a phone or a tablet, you should already be seeing the captions. If you're on a computer and want to see them, you'll need to click the live transcript button at the bottom of your screen and then choose Show Subtitle. As always, we invite you to check in to UUCP on social media with the hashtag UUAnywhere. I have a few announcements about the life of our community. All of these announcements can be found on our weekly online newsletter, Compass. You can sign up for Compass on our website, phoenixuu.org. First of all, thank you for a wonderfully radically inclusive evening of storytelling last night. What an evening of creativity, sharing, and community. Thank you to everyone who made it possible, from the dreaming of what it could be to its flawless execution. As a reminder, all of those videos and more are available on our website. Go and see even more stories. Our optimistic goal for the fundraiser was $6,000, and we have received $9,875 so far. That's amazing. And there's still a chance to donate, as this is our fundraiser for the year. Every bit helps. UU Jazz's Day at the Legislature will be virtual this year on Monday, February 15th. There is still time to register. Do you have a song, poem, reading, skit, dance, visual artwork, invention, or joke to share? Whether the answer is yes or no, please join us this Wednesday night's open mic to appreciate the creativity of our community. No talent necessary, all ages, all styles, all abilities welcome. Music director Benji Messer will lead singing to open and close the evening. And finally, we are collecting our offering virtually, just like in our service. We ask you to be generous in your giving to support the mission of our beloved community. You can text UUCP to 73256. You can donate through the website, or you can send an old-fashioned check. For all that you give and do for our congregation, we are so grateful.
Good morning. Sorry for the lag. Buttons aren't working quite the way I want them to this morning. I'm Katie Resendez, and I'm the Director of Children's Ministry here at UUC Phoenix. Things aren't going quite the way we expected. That's kind of become our motto a little bit. So let's tell some stories. Then we know that things won't go as we're expecting, because we never expect what's next. I'm the Director of Children's Ministry, but you are 4 years old. And you're looking at a shelf full of bright, colorful boxes, all these narrow rectangles with bright letters and primary colors. And if you take a box down from the shelf and shake it, it makes this noise. All the big kids rush in and they pick one of the boxes out and they start the ritual of unfolding and putting things onto the table. And you see that they're going to play a game. And you get really excited. They're really excited. It looks like so much fun. You go up to the table and you ask, as you find yourself asking so much in these 4-year-old days, can I play? And you get the answer you've been getting a lot. No, you're too little. No, this game is too hard for you. We'll play a game with you later. And so you find your paper and some crayons and you go off and sit and color. You're pretty good at coloring. But you can't help but look over at that table and see all of those wonderful game pieces and wish that you could be playing. As you get a little bit older, the big kids do invite you to play, but it still doesn't feel quite as much fun as they look like they're having. See, because your favorite color is blue, but your oldest friend's favorite color is blue too, so you play yellow. Yellow is fine. And you figure out the rules, but they have to tell you every step of the way, and you keep forgetting. You can't wait to learn how to read. And once you do, you read the rules of those games. You read them and read them and read them. And then one day you get to the point where you feel like you can say, hey, want to play a game? And you pull out Monopoly. And all the big kids are now much bigger kids. And they kind of look at it and they're like, I guess so. Yeah, we'll play with you. And you are so happy and so thankful. And you start to play. And the thing is, it feels good at first. And maybe you're winning and you know the rules and you know how this goes. But they start pulling out other rules. Rules that maybe you didn't totally understand when you read them in the booklet, or house rules. What's a house rule? Oh, and the game is tricky. And you move your player around the board and you're trying to buy houses, because that's the goal of Monopoly, is to buy houses and hotels and land and to create a monopoly. And when you finally have enough money to buy the houses that you want and to put them on the land that you want, you find out there are no more houses left because all the big kids have bought them all. And you think, wait, that's not fair. Shouldn't you have changed some of those into hotels? Shouldn't you have done something with them? And they say, oh, no, look here. The rule says if all the houses are bought, that's all there is. I guess you can't buy any houses. And what you figure out is that there wasn't a way for you to win, that they knew all the rules and they had been playing for longer and they had talked beforehand. In fact, you think they had probably talked during the game, sending each other little signals, letting each other know what the plan was. And in the end, you end up losing. And it doesn't feel great. But the thing is, what they never told you was you're not supposed to feel good about winning Monopoly. Not only is the money not real, Not only are you playing with metaphors of houses and hotels where you're not thinking about people, replacing houses with hotels, that doesn't sound like a long-term community solution. The game is called Monopoly. Okay, so you're older now. You've come to terms with the fact that you've never won a game of Monopoly. And you're okay with it because winning Monopoly doesn't feel great. How many of you out there have never won a game of Monopoly? Me too. It's okay. Now you're much older and you find out about horse racing and betting on horses. And you don't know if you're really into it, but here's the thing. You find out that not only are people going and betting officially on what horse is going to win, but to the side, there's bets about what horse is going to lose and what jockey is going to lose. Can you imagine being an athlete and finding out that people weren't just betting that you weren't going to win, but they were actively betting that you were going to lose? That no matter how much you've trained and worked and how hard you've pushed to get to that level in your sport, even if the sport's not ethical, super, people are out there saying, I bet you're going to lose and I'm going to make money off of it. Yeah, that doesn't feel good. Not only does it not feel good, there's something really twisted about it. So you find out that people bet on jockeys and bet they're going to lose. So you decide what will make the jockeys feel better. I'm going to get a whole bunch of my friends together and bet they're not going to lose. I'm going to bet on them to win. And you get all of those people together and the jockey hears about it. Even the horse gets excited about it. And they go and go and go and go and go. And all of that confidence, that huge burst, helps them win. Okay, that's maybe a little super abstract. Kiddos, what I'm talking about is when you sit down to play a game and find out that nobody ever wanted you to win, that it wasn't ever fair, it wasn't ever set up like that, and no one was ever thinking about the people involved. And with the horses, what I'm really talking about is when we see something struggling and instead of supporting it and figuring out how to make it work better, we bet against it. And we say, I'm going to profit if it fails. So this week, there was a bit of both of this going on with the stock market. And when we think about the stock market, there are some great videos out there that I'll post links to on our Facebook page about figuring out what that means and how to think about it if you're a kiddo and if you're an adult. But overall, the thing that I want us to think about, and maybe it's a pandemic lesson or maybe it's an always lesson, is that when we see anyone in our community and we bet they're going to lose and we set it up so that there's no way they can win, and we pretend like the money is fake money, and we pretend like there aren't people in those houses, we all lose. And we don't need to all lose. We can figure out a smarter way. We can figure out a better game. And maybe at some point, we'll be able to take some time and say sorry. You are all so powerful and so very loved. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you, Annalise. In preparation for this service about COVID-19 and loss, we put out a call for people to share their experiences. We asked, the pandemic has caused many kinds of losses. What have you missed or feel grief about, or look forward to having again? We received a number of responses, too many to acknowledge all of them individually. As you might expect, the losses expressed cover all that life offers. This pandemic has taken away months of normal living, and in far too many cases has taken away lives. Mothers, fathers, relatives, friends. John Hahn's mother, Tanya Broad's father. Being separated from our friends and family has been tough, especially for our kids. Our youth and parents of youth have missed celebrating events that won't come again. Graduations, birthday parties, college kids who were supposed to come home for Thanksgiving. Dylan Lifshitz wrote, I've missed out on some of my big high school events, like junior prom and senior homecoming. I'll probably also lose my in-person 18th birthday party and potentially graduation. I'm looking forward to the possibility of having some of these events online, if at all, and hopefully being able to attend college in person in the fall. Note the resilience in that. Many have had plans derailed, trips canceled. Dave Bellama and Nancy McCarran had overseas travel planned for last March to visit a dear friend who is 84. It breaks my heart, Nancy wrote, that I may never see her again. And then there are all the everyday things people mentioned. Going to movies, eating out, browsing in stores. As Ann Chase wrote, socializing with ease in person with my friends, family, and UUCP congregation, including hugging those who are open to it. I've been reminded of Joni Mitchell's lyric, don't it always seem to go? You don't know what you've lost till it's gone. We also experience frustration and anger at those who refuse to take simple precautions, thereby endangering others. That can also be a type of loss, a loss of faith in humanity. Eric Ariana wrote about that, but also he wrote, I try to remind myself not to become cynical and to focus on being a light. So we have griefs and losses, but also some change and growth. Have we lost some things that we're better off without? Gained some things we didn't know we needed? Certainly our new normal, when we finally get there, will be different than the old normal. Maybe better in some ways. May it be so, and soon.
Good morning, all. I want to share a simple song with you about being together. And the lyrics are, walking with you is my prayer. The melody goes, walking with you is my prayer. That's it. Walking with you is my prayer. Now, we can replace the word walking with any ing verb. And I invite you to post ideas in the chat, and we'll sing a few of them together. Ooh. Oh, thanks, Carrie. Carrie says zoom in. Let's do it. Ooh, zooming with you, zooming with you is my prayer. And Rose says singing, singing with you, singing with you is my prayer. Devin and Anna say dreaming, yes. Dreaming with you is my prayer. And Nabi says playing, ooh, playing with you is my prayer. And Michelle says laughing, laughing with you is my prayer. Oh, Anne says smiling, smiling with you is my prayer. Oh, I gotta do that one, Eric. Thank you. Crying with you is my prayer. Oh, and Laurel says hoping with you is my prayer. Thanks, everyone. That was fun.
That was fun. Thank you, Benji, for the interaction. And I know so many of you are just sitting on your couch and enjoying this, but you need to know that we look at every single chat and it just feels so good every time we see your names and know you're there and seeing you participate. It is the time when we share the joys and sorrows of our community. Being together, it is good to share. It is good to support each other and connect, especially on a day like this. Please write any joys or sorrows that you want our community to know about. I want to let you know that there's going to be a point later in the service where we're going to be able to talk about our griefs overall. So really this is super specific for this week. Please put your name at the beginning so I know who it is. Please do that. Only like a third of you do that. If you want it to be private, just to me, put private at the beginning and I will hold it in my heart. And while you're entering your joys and sorrows, let me mention a few in our world. First of all, we have Stephanie, our business administrator behind the scenes, who is watching more fundraising money come in. We're already over $10,000. We're at $10,500 already. So thank you for all of you who are so generous last night, today, tomorrow, all the time. I also want to tell you that as we prepare another delivery to the Navajo Nation, I pass on gratitude from Nanaba, one of our community contacts there. Families are particularly grateful for the winter coats and boots that are coming in really handy right now. And additionally, we are helping with a program that the Navajo Nation has started to encourage healthy eating, beginning with getting families to bake their own bread instead of frying it. And Nanaba said in a recent letter to us, through your collaboration, we have the means to ensure the start of a change of culture when it comes to good nutrition. Many, many thanks and gratitude. The pod is looking forward to inviting the congregation to the Navajo Nation for stories and sightseeing when we can, as are we. Thank you all for that. Let us turn to the joys and sorrows of our community. Michelle Morgan says, had her second COVID vaccine. Hooray, Michelle. So glad to hear that. Such a joy, every single one of them. Debbie and Mike Carr say, Carr Taylor are joyful that Mike received his first COVID vaccine last Monday. Again, terrific news. I will share that my mom got her first COVID vaccine last week, and I got one for driving her. Very unexpected joy. So Anne says, a joy of Amanda Gorman's poem, always. Joy from Eric Arellano says, my work allowed me to take on a new intern starting tomorrow. I've had lots of mentors who took a risk on me, and I'm excited to now pay it forward. Mary McManus says, a joy. I got my first dose of the vaccine MLK weekend, and I'm getting my second dose in a week. I finally got to text my boss to put me back on the schedule in 2 weeks, and I'm so excited to go back to teaching kids math. How wonderful, Mary. That's just terrific. I'm so glad. And Lackey also got my first dose of the vaccine. My friend who had a ruptured aorta before Christmas is finally come home from the hospital. A double joy there, Anne. Thank you. From Neil Douglas says, a joy. I was very pleased to receive a thoughtful card from Gary Ezell this week. Thank you. Bonnie White says, so joyful of all those who participated in making the storytelling happen, for all those who gave for this beautiful congregation. And we say right back at you, Bonnie. Great job. Thank you for heading this up. Donna Talbot says they are celebrating Terry's 70th birthday. Glad she is my wife. And happy birthday, Terry, from all of us. Belinda Iyer says, I got my mother scheduled for her second COVID shot, and I am scheduled too. Hooray. Stuart says, a joy. Thank you all for your thoughts and prayers this week. John is out of the hospital and home back playing online with his friends. He still isn't comfortable with needles, but who is? Stuart, please know that you and your family have been in the thoughts and prayers of so many of us this week. From Audrey Atherton says, grateful for the small blessings I sometimes don't notice. Grateful for a sinus infection instead of COVID. Never thought that we would be grateful for a sinus infection. I'm glad that you'll be okay, Audrey. And Jazz Putnam says, a joy, we are almost done moving back to Phoenix. We are glad to have you back in the neighborhood, Jazz. And Nabi and Jira. And there's more here from Karen Kurtz. Says, grateful that my mom is being discharged from the hospital today. She has COVID, but received antibody treatment yesterday and is feeling good. Thanks for all the prayers. Oh, so glad to hear that, Karen. And Barbara Cawthorn says, a joy. So grateful we had our COVID vaccination Friday. Now I'm not as uncomfortable about having surgery in the hospital in 10 days and also spending a week there recuperating. And you are going to be so much in our hearts, Barbara, during that time. And Kathy Kopak says, I finally got my nurse practitioner credentials for Arizona. It took 6 months. Hooray. Okay, this is what happens. And I say, okay, I'm ready to move on. And then you all start typing again. So absolutely. So I invite you now into a time of meditation and prayer. And I invite you to center yourselves, get back in touch with your body, take a few deep breaths. Today, we are talking about grief and loss. We're starting to approach our year anniversary of the COVID crisis. And we're talking about a time of reflection and meaning making. Today, we're going to be talking about grief. And I have to be honest, I didn't know when the right time was. Was it at the beginning when our country lost 100,000, at 200,000, at the mile markers of 400,000. Surely it doesn't mean that we wait until the end. And I felt like we needed a marker. We needed a time to just acknowledge the grief. We're going to be talking about grief and loss in 3 different levels. First, that over 400,000 people who have died in the US and the over 25 million who have been infected with COVID, and that is just in the United States. Those numbers are staggering, and we're going to try to comprehend that much. There's also the individual loss, the losses that you have suffered. Some of you have lost friends and family members. Some have been from COVID, and oh, so many for other causes. But the grief has been difficult and complicated because of hospital visits, memorial services, and gatherings are all different. That grief in this time has felt weightier. And we're creating space also for all the little losses. We often say, I can't complain, or it doesn't compare, but the truth is that all the little losses are still as real. Our sense of freedom, seeing friends and family members, missing big milestones, deferring connection. So for the meditation this morning, I want to use the chat. You all have already been so interactive to name some of those losses, big and small. Feel free to enter as many as you want. Things missed, those lost, sadnesses, big and small. By naming them in this space, we can collectively hold them. As you see them stream by, even if they are coming too fast to read them all, I'm encouraging you to send loving energy out into the universe, holding every single person who is expressing them and every single loss as holy. Also, visitors, I know you are there. I know you are gathering from all over the country, and in fact, outside of the country, from time to time, perhaps. So guests, please feel free to contribute as well. We know that you're there and you're always welcome to participate. We will hold these griefs in silence. And then please continue to feel free to share them, to continue writing as Mary plays our meditation music. Please join me in silence as we hold the myriad of grief. Feel free to continue to type all the way through the service so we can hold all these things as we talk about collective loss, our individual loss, and all of that ambiguous loss. 400,000 Americans lost. Actually, as of this morning, it was 439. It's growing so fast. The estimate is that we'll be 500,000 in February. And is in Arizona, COVID has officially become the #1 cause of death. This is in addition to all the death and grief that we would have already experienced. 400,000 people, almost all of them in hospitals without family around, with exhausted nurses taking such excellent care of them. How do we even comprehend that number? I don't have 400,000 of anything that's tangible, so I have to resort to other metaphors. So let's see, 420,000 is the population of Minneapolis, Minnesota. 430,000 people is the population of Oakland, California. We are more than both of those. By February, we'll be at 500,000. That's the population of Atlanta, Georgia. Or to make it even more local, we take all of the people in Mesa, Arizona, and double it. Or in Scottsdale, twice. Let's make it relevant to Unitarian Universalism. It is the entire population of Unitarian and Universalists in the United States. We are a denomination that is 100,000 people strong. Well, that we know of. That's just to be clear. The death is 4 times over of that. Let's make it hyper-local now. Our sanctuary holds about 275 seats when it is completely filled. Now that's like a Christmas filled, okay? So picture that with a lot more chairs there. We have over 13,022 deaths in Arizona. That is 47 filled sanctuaries. The sanctuary, 47 times in the state of Arizona. If we look at the United States, we've had over 439,000 deaths. That is over 1,596 filled sanctuaries. Whew, that's a lot. And I feel like it's important that we can kind of put some kind of context around those numbers. And I'm not going to give you words of wisdom for how to process all this loss because I don't actually know them. But I think it's really important that we recognize how big these numbers are and that we don't try to minimize it. And that we recognize the toll that it takes in our collective psyches, our collective consciousness, and in our bodies. Last week at the inauguration, churches were asked to ring their bells for those who had been lost. This is a compilation of UU congregations that participated. I want you to imagine how long it took for all of these churches to ring their bells 400 times, each ring representing 1,000 people lost. At the National Cathedral, it took 42 minutes. Let us listen and try to comprehend the enormity of it all. I'm seeing many of you who recognize some of those congregations. I see others of you asking for UUCP to get a bell. I know that many of you have individually had loss in your family and friends this year. And some of you are still grieving from deaths from which you will never recover. Grief is always a difficult emotional process, and this year has made it even more difficult. Not being able to visit, not being able to go to the hospital, not being able to grieve in the same ways. I want to talk about the loss of memorial services because that's an area where I'm seeing a lot of change. Now, not everyone chooses to have a memorial service, and that's fine. But for those who have, there was kind of a predictable pattern after someone you love died. The calls would go out, the funeral or memorial service would be announced, and the people would gather. For many, the memorial service might be weeks or months later, but there was still a plan for something to commemorate it. The hallmarks of a service were hugs and food and tears and live music and a lot of gathering, casseroles. Now there are none of those. Worse, for many just aren't having any kind of service at all, leaving a huge hole where a ritual should be, or planning one for a time when we don't know when it will be, when we can all gather again. I'm going to say it now. I strongly recommend an online memorial service, and there are a lot of ministers who are learning how to do this well. Even if you plan on having an in-person gathering afterwards, the ritual of looking at photos, sharing memories, and consoling each other is very desperately needed. The online services I've seen have been intimate and sweet and radically inclusive. Grief is always difficult, but COVID grief is just more so. There are so many people who didn't get to say goodbye the way they wanted. There are so many who have complexities and questions around what happened at the hospital because it was an overwhelmed system. There are so many who lost a friend without getting to tell the family how much they meant to them. For others, the death doesn't seem real because there weren't the usual markers to recognize it. And so many are grieving alone in their homes without community around them. Grief stays with us for a long time, but I think COVID grief, because how we have been experiencing it, will be lingering even longer. I know that I will feel it all over again when we gather in person without Ruth Brownstein there to greet us, or without Nancy Beach clasping my hands after the service. If you remember early in the pandemic, I called this pandemic liminal space. It's the space in between. We are still in between in our grief. We are in between what was normal, what we naively took for granted, and what it will be, which will be a totally different normal that we can't yet picture. UU minister and a colleague and friend of mine, Amy Carroll Webb, wrote a song about the in-between just after the assault on the Capitol. And her words give us space for the liminality of this time.
I'm standing in the hallway, looking at the doors, wondering which one I should open, what I'm waiting for. The future's here before me, the past is closed behind, and I don't know which way to turn or what I hope to find, so I'm just waiting, waiting in between. I'm standing at the window, staring at the sky, watching the horizon, wondering which way I should fly. How do the winter birds know where to go and when it's time, when I can't hear my own heartbeat for the noise inside my mind, while I'm waiting, waiting in between. Every day's a brand new question, another river yet to cross, hoping for the courage to stay just a little lost. We're standing at the crossroads where we've been and yet to go, when prayers seem unanswered and questions hover low. A story's found an ending, but the new one's not begun. The truth is in the silence before the song is sung, while we're waiting, waiting in between. We're waiting, waiting in between.
Okay, I want you, like really, I want you to take a deep breath. See if you can fill up your whole lungs, push it down. This is a lot to take in. And for all of this, it's hard to process it. And yet marking it is important. Because it's not just loss of life. There are other losses included here. There are losses that we have that are due to situations outside of our control, like a pandemic. These are the losses that many people say something like, well, I shouldn't complain because at least we're all still healthy, or I know it's worse for other people. And let me just be very clear. Minimizing these losses for yourself does not make them easier for you or for anyone else. In fact, not naming them can sometimes make it harder because it is difficult to deal with something that we don't acknowledge. This ambiguous loss can be minor, like not getting to go shopping or getting to go out to dinner, or make you sad, like not being able to travel. But it gets even harder when it affects our relationships, like not getting to see family members. I saw so much of that in your chat. There are so many events that haven't happened, graduations, weddings, reunions, just visits. There's the loss of normalcy, the feeling that everything just feels like it takes more time, more energy, more emotional investment. I will remind you again that this is not the suffering Olympics. You do not get an award for denying things you have lost, nor do you help anyone else who is suffering more by not dealing with your own emotions. This is not a competition. As we saw from our meditation and from Gary's reflection, there are a wide range of losses in this category. And rather than small ones that shouldn't bother us all that much, they all seem to pile up on top of each other. I think it's important to name the ambiguous loss and stress of our country too, reckoning with whether we want to be a democratic nation and the reckoning of our racial history and current situation. Both of these are losses and stresses and hard on our psyches and our hearts. Ambiguous loss prompts an especially challenging kind of grief. It's confusing and disorienting, and it defies popular ideas about closure, which we are recognizing is probably never really a thing. For so long, we've been wondering when there will be an end to it. And then we learned, okay, there will be an end when we get a vaccine. And now that we have the vaccine, we realize that it's just not that clear. Existing in the not knowing of our current lives feels unsustainable. Because ambiguous loss can be so complex and distressing, it also can't be solved with traditional means. I know that many of us have tried to have Zoom parties, breaking bread, taking up new hobbies to get ourselves out of this. But the truth is that no matter how creative we get, and no matter how much it helps, and it does, there can be a deep fatigue that comes out of all of it. Feeling this ambiguous loss is normal. Feeling tired is rational. And I'm here to tell you that it's valid. Naming it as ambiguous loss and practicing acceptance of it is how we cope. Feeling ambivalence is a logical reaction. Feeling tired is also. And I want to affirm that it is a key component of our faith that we can hold multiple things to be true at the same time. I think of Amy McClendon's service on Yes and. Things have changed and not all of it is for the worse. We don't know when this will end, and we know it will get better. Our freedom has been impacted, and I recognize how much control I do have of my life. It's not just me saying this, but almost everyone who has written about ambiguous loss has said the same thing. that the solution is community. Finding people who you can talk to, who care, listening to their stories, community, and events like last night, and seeing all of the other stories that exist on the website. There are more great stories there that I hope you will listen to. Finding ways to still find laughter, finding ways where we can still grieve. Grief is the emotion of the season, collective grief, individual grief, and ambiguous grief. I want you to know that you are not alone in this, and we will get through this together. May you find peace and meaning and peace.
Thank you, Reverend Christine. So let's go forward, knowing in the words of the old spiritual that there is more love somewhere and that we can keep on till we find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. And there is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. And happiness, there is happiness somewhere. Said there is happiness somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is happiness somewhere. And more joy, there is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. We're gonna keep on till we find it. There is more joy somewhere. More love. There is more love somewhere, somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. Thanks all.
Thank you, Benji. So before our closing words, I want to invite you to coffee hour where we'll meet and experience some of that joy, that community, that fellowship that is the way that we get through this. Visitors, we hope that you will come and join us. We are a bunch. A reminder to keep on each other. And I don't know what to see if I've got an update, if how much over $10,000 we are now. You can still give. Our closing words are a prayer from Reverend George Kimmich Beach. May I be at peace, more patient with myself. May I live with the questions that promise no answers, but only signal the mystery that gave them birth. Let me turn from every pettiness of the heart, willing to see and accept that the world does not revolve around me. Let the grief, the pain, and the nameless trouble that overcomes me also open me wide to feel what others have felt. Giver of being and freedom, unbind my compassion for all beings about me, and again set free the child of grace within me. Amen. Blessed be and Ashe. Go in peace and go in love.